Hi, everybody. Welcome in. It's Andrew Stadel. This video is going to show you how to use the first 5 days of Estimation 180 with your students. Stay tuned until the end of the video. I'm going to show you where to get the handouts that you'll see me using in this video. Okay, so here we are on the home page of Estimation 180. How do we get to day one? You'll notice at the top, there's days 1 through 20. You can click there and you'll find day one. Or you could scroll down a little bit and there's days 1 through 20 as well. And you could click there and you'll see day one waiting for you. So when you land on day one, you'll see it's asking about how tall is Mr. Stadel? That's me. Now, chances are good I have not met your students and they have not met me. And so that kind of puts this at maybe a guess, but we're going to find out why we can turn this into an estimate because we are going to still be strategic about the number or the height in this case that we choose for Mr. Stadel, because there are some elements in the picture that we can pull out and use to be very strategic and purposeful with our estimate. As a reminder, anytime you go to a task, click on the image. This will enlarge the picture so that you and your students can look more closely at the elements in the math landscape. I'm going to move over to my tablet so I can think aloud a little bit about what students might say or notice or question in some of these tasks for you. It's okay if they don't mention them, but I'm going to point them out because I've heard them a lot from students and they might help you in your math conversations with students. So I've heard students point out that there is a fence in the background, and I think that's important. And so what do we know about the fence? Not much, but we know it's not like a really tall fence. So what I'm going to say is maybe that fence is about 3 to 4 feet. Now you'll notice on this estimation task, I have a lower limit, an upper limit, and an actual estimate, kind of like a Goldilocks thinking here, right? Too cold, too hot, and just right. And so what we want to do here is encourage students to be brave with their lower limit and upper limit. For example, if a student said, well, we know he's not 1 inch tall, I'm going to put that as my lower limit. Are they right? Yes. But let's encourage them to be braver. If I'm guessing that the height of the fence is about 3 to 4 feet tall, then I'm going to put that as my lower limit because he's taller than that fence. In terms of an upper limit, he looks like he's a tall lad, kind of skinny, but he's not like crazy tall, like Shaquille O'Neal tall. So I would say he's not taller than 7 feet. And I think that's good enough. He's somewhere in there. I'm going to just estimate today that he's about 6 feet tall. That's okay. Now, some things I've also seen students do is like say, well, what if there was someone like in our class standing next to him? Where would that person kind of be? And what's their height? You know, like maybe they're like, oh, whatever. And that might help. But again, we don't know much about Mr. Stadel at this point, so we're just going to kind of move on. Let's go find out how tall he is. So let's go back to the website, click off the picture, and then we see the reveal button here. Let's click on that and find out. I want you to take notice to the 6'4". It's represented as 6 feet with a prime and 4 inches with a double prime. If you're in the metric system, it's about 193 centimeters. Okay, before I share with you about the daily logs, I want to share with you the Estimation 180 toolkits. I've frequently heard from teachers about how they would like estimation tasks directly connected to their math standards. And that's what the Estimation 180 toolkits accomplish. I highly recommend you head to estimation180.com/toolkits where you can learn more. You'll see that you'll get exclusive access to tasks directly connected to grade level standards. You'll have access to downloadable files, video introductions, video reveals, and a community of teachers sharing their expertise to learn and grow together about the toolkits. I hope you check it out. So head on over to estimation180.com/toolkit. Now I'm going to introduce you to the daily log. So let's go back to my tablet. You'll notice on the daily log, I have 5 days here, and this is great. I love the daily log because it allows you to see the connections between each day, and you might reference some information from previous days. So let's go through this daily log together. You'll notice Mr. Stadel's height is day 1, and I put my lower limit of 4 feet, my upper limit of 7 feet, and I came up with an estimate about 6 feet. Then I shared my reasoning. Well, I said he was taller than the fence, but not like Shaq tall. All right. And then I'm going to write down the reveal once my teacher reveals 6'4". And hopefully we don't write the following. We don't write 6.4. And what a great teachable moment we can have with students to say 6.4 feet is not the same thing as 6 feet 4 inches. If you don't want to tackle that on day 1, don't worry about it. You can come back to it over the next 5 days. So now there's a couple ways you can approach this. It just depends on what you want to do. If you want to break these estimation tasks up 1 day at a time, great. You can maybe have them fill it in as a warm-up as they're walking in class, write down Mrs. Stadel's height and show the picture. Or if you just want to save some time and have them write out the remaining 4 on their daily log and just say, hey, we're going to come back to it when we have time, whether it's in the middle of class, as an exit ticket, as a warm-up, whatever you decide, you have that flexibility. Let's go check out day 2 and see how we can reference information that we learned from day 1. Okay, on day 2, you'll notice we're asking about how tall is Mrs. Stadel. This is key here. We have information about Mr. Stadel that we can use with this estimate for Mrs. Stadel. And that's why it's not a guess. We're just not blindly guessing anymore. We're going to use elements from the math landscape to help us with this. So let me point out a couple of things I've heard students reference. So number one, we know that Mr. Stadel is 6'4". And so what we could do is immediately go to our upper limit and say, well, she's not 6'4". And if we said, well, half of Mr. Stadel is about right there, we could say, well, our lower limit is probably whatever half of 6'4" is, which is about 3 feet 2 inches. And so she's somewhere in between those, right? Now, what I've noticed students do, number two, is students say, well, what is maybe that distance between the top of her head and the top of his head? And they say maybe 1 foot or so forth. So it would be reasonable for students to come up with estimates that say she's about 5 foot 4 inches. But here's a bonus thing I want you to consider that students often point out. They look at my posture and how I'm standing, and they'll notice that I'm not necessarily standing straight up. And they might take that into consideration when they're making their estimate. So let's go back to the website and see how tall is Mrs. Stadel. All right, so here we are. Let's click on the reveal. And there she is. She's 5'5", which is about 165 centimeters. Okay, let's return to our daily log and put that information there. Okay, in our daily log, our estimate was about 5'4", and we said that, okay, she's not as tall as Mr. Stadel, and she's taller than half. Okay, and we could write that reasoning right here. All right, so we could say she was about a foot shorter than Mr. Stadel. Okay, and her actual estimate was 5'5". Now, we're not going to go through and do day 3, 4, and 5 in detail like I just did with day 1 and 2. We've kind of established a foundation, which is great with day 1 and 2. And now as we move through day 3, 4, and 5, I'm going to point out maybe 1, maybe 2 things that you might hear students talking about and making connections to heights from Mr. Stadel and Mrs. Stadel, making connections to units of measurement, as well as some proportional thinking. On day 3, we're asking about how tall is Mr. Stadel's son. So again, we already know my height. And students might say, well, he looks about half, maybe a little bit taller than half. I've also heard students point out the fact that there's these shutters in the background. And so they maybe take my height and kind of break it up and say, well, each shutter length is about so many inches. And so then they take that into calculation for my son's height. Lots of fun things here you can do with this day 3. In day 4, I use this task with my high school geometry students when we're talking about similar triangles. I'm not saying you have to, but I'll point that out at the end as a bonus. So a lot of students will say, wow, here's Mr. Stadel. He's standing next to this lamppost. How many times can we stack Mr. Stadel, essentially, to find out the height of the lamppost? And so this is a great math conversation for students to have and juggling the idea of 6'4" inches. And what are they going to do with that? Are they going to multiply it by 3? Are they going to add it 3 times? And so here you have a great opportunity for students to say, oh, we have 12 inches and 18 feet. And that converts to 19 feet, right? Now, the quick bonus on this one is when students in my geometry class say, hey, what are some things we could measure? Well, we already know my height. You can measure that. We can measure my shadow. We can measure the lamppost shadow. And when we have that 1, 2, 3, we have those 3 things that are measurable, we could use that to actually calculate the 4th thing, which is the height of the lamppost. That's so fun. I love that. And lastly, day 5, you're going to estimate the height of my daughter. Similar to other days, we already know someone's height in this picture. We know our son's height, and we know that she's shorter. And so they might just want to say, hey, okay, take the son's height and take about a foot off or whatever, how many ever inches they would like to on that one. Again, the purpose of this one, though, is to really drive home the point of what's the upper limit, probably my son's height, and then for them to reasonably subtract a number of inches that makes sense to them. I hope you found this video helpful. Now I'm going to point out where you can get those handouts and a couple bonus items that you might be interested in. So let's start with the handout that you saw me working on the tablet, where I could annotate and draw on the pictures. Those handouts can be found on every single day of 1 through 5. For example, on day 5, underneath the picture, there's an orange button that says, get the student handout for this task. And you'll notice I have all the days ready for you. There's 4 of the same day on one page, so you could cut them out and give students the little sheet of paper and they could draw on them. If that's not your jam and you really like the daily log has 10 days on it, which really allows you to make connections and use information from previous days. You'll find the daily log at the teacher resources page. So go up to the top, click on teacher resources, and then under student handouts, it's the first item, daily log 10 days. I hope this was enough to get you started on the first 5 days. If you're interested in more, then I've got 2 things for you. So number 1, make sure you subscribe to my newsletter where I share blog posts and updates and resources that you might find helpful. Number 2 is I highly recommend you check out the free mini course on how to use Estimation 180. That's also found on the teacher resources page where you can sign up to take the free mini course. It has 5 essential tips to help you get started. It unpacks a few of the things that we've already talked about. and even more. Thanks for being here. I hope you found this video helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.